Welcome to the macabre world of one of America's most notorious figures, a man whose name is synonymous with deception, darkness, and death. This man is Herman Webster Mudgett, known to the world as H.H. Holmes. Born on a spring day, May 16, 1861, in the sleepy town of Gilmanton, New Hampshire, Holmes was destined for a life far removed from the idyllic surroundings of his childhood home. Raised in a well-to-do family, he was afforded the luxuries of a good education and a comfortable lifestyle. But beneath the surface of this seemingly normal upbringing, a darkness was brewing. As he grew older, his interests began to deviate from the norm. His curiosity was drawn not to the wonders of life but to the mysteries of death, a fascination that would eventually lead him down a path of unimaginable horror. Holmes would go from being a promising student to one of America's first and most infamous serial killers. His reign of terror would span a decade, leaving a chilling legacy that still haunts the annals of American crime history. As we delve deeper into his life and crimes, remember, not everything is as it seems. For behind the charming facade of H.H. Holmes lurked a monster who reveled in deception and had an insatiable thirst for blood. Stay with us as we journey into the heart of darkness, exploring the life and crimes of H.H. Holmes. This is a tale of a man who died on May 7, 1896, but whose chilling legacy of death and deception continues to live on, more than a century later. Scene 2. The Unsettling Beginnings. Picture a man of immense intelligence, born into affluence with a sinister secret concealed beneath his alluring demeanor. This man is none other Herman Webster Mudgett, more famously known as H.H. Holmes. Raised in a well-off household, Holmes showed early signs of a remarkable mind. However, all that shines isn't necessarily golden. Underneath the promising intellect was an ominous undertow. At medical school, his performance was somewhat ordinary, quite contrasting to his previous exceptional intellect. This is where he started to exhibit an interest in the macabre. Holmes's illegal activities took root during his medical school years, ironically, a period meant for learning to preserve lives. Instead, he was attracted to the dark, developing a creepy fascination with grave robbing. This grim interest didn't stem from a desire to comprehend life and death's enigmas. It was simply a stepping stone to a wicked aim. Holmes practiced stealing cadavers from the school, mutilating them, and then falsifying the bodies as accident victims to illicitly claim insurance money. This marked the inception of Holmes's criminal path. He was a master of manipulation, spinning a tangled web of lies and deceit around him. Holmes used his charm and intelligence to swindle insurance companies, a skill that later became a significant part of his terrifying murder plots. His early life eerily foreshadowed the monstrous road he was to embark on later. Post-medical school, in 1886, Holmes relocated to Chicago. The thriving city was unaware that it was about to become home to a man who would soon be one of the most infamous characters in its history. In 1886, Holmes moved to Chicago, a city that would soon turn into the backdrop for his horrifying deeds. Scene 3. The Murder Castle. In the heart of bustling Chicago, Holmes erected a structure that would later be ominously referred to as the Murder Castle. Not your typical habitation, this grim edifice, an eerie work of art birthed from Holmes's creativity, was a dreadful labyrinth teeming with concealed passages, trapdoors, and rooms that could be made airtight instantly. Each chamber within this murder castle bore chilling witness to Holmes's shrewdness and his warped mind. He built it with a single, terrifying intention: to murder. With soundproof walls, externally locking doors, and a disorienting and baffling layout, it was here that Holmes would ensnare his innocent victims, many of whom were attracted to Chicago by the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893. However, the terror did not cease after the killings. Holmes harbored a twisted sense of productivity. He not only made his employees sign life insurance policies naming him as the beneficiary, but he also found ways to exploit the bodies of his victims for profit. In a morbid twist, he sold their remains to medical schools, capitalizing on the demand for cadavers for scientific purposes. The Murder Castle remains a ghastly monument to one of America's earliest and most infamous serial killers, speaking volumes about the psyche of H.H. Holmes, a man not only capable of executing such horrific deeds, but also adept at doing so under the pretense of charisma and intellect. The Murder Castle served as an unsettling testament to Holmes's guile and depravity, a maze of death where countless souls met their premature demise. Scene 4. Deception and Downfall. Holmes was not just a killer but a cunning deceiver, embroiled in a multitude of fraudulent activities. The facade of a genial doctor and businessman concealed a much more sinister reality. Holmes's talent for dishonesty breached the confines of his murder castle, encroaching into the realm of financial deceptions and insurance swindles. Possessing a voracious hunger for wealth and dominance, he was prepared to cross any line to fulfill his ambitions. His most infamous scam involved the manipulation of life insurance policies. Holmes manipulated his employees into buying life insurance, with him as the beneficiary. The oblivious victims would then meet a premature demise and Holmes would claim the insurance payout. This horrifying tactic enabled him to accumulate wealth, while simultaneously eradicating potential witnesses to his crimes. However, Holmes's realm of deceit wasn't confined to his business dealings. He was a habitual bigamist, marrying several times under distinct aliases. His charm and magnetic personality allowed him to effortlessly control those around him, leading a life steeped in lies and deception. The heat of his unlawful activities, Holmes discovered a partner in crime in Benjamin Petzel, a carpenter with a shady past. Together they instigated a spree of insurance scams, journeying across states and leaving a wake of deceit and death in their path. Nonetheless, in 1893, the complex web of lies Holmes had woven began to disintegrate. He was apprehended for insurance fraud, but was released shortly after due to insufficient evidence. Unbeknownst to the world, this marked the beginning of Holmes's downfall. He had successfully evaded the law for years, but his time was running thin. Indeed, the reign terror orchestrated by Holmes was on the brink of collapse. Scene 5, the End of H.H. Holmes. In 1894, Holmes faced his final arrest, a crime he was unable to elude with his charm: the murder of Ben Petzel. The evidence was incontrovertible, and Holmes was condemned to death. While awaiting his end in the confines of his cell, Holmes penned a confession in which he assumed ownership for 27 murders. Yet the actual tally of his victims is still a topic of conjecture. Some crime analysts suspect that he may have ended the lives of over 200 people. In a haunting final act of control, Holmes bartered his confession and the licensing rights to his biography to the Hearst Corporation for a sum of $10,000. His account, laden with gruesome specifics of his felonies, was circulated in newspapers across the country, intensifying the public's captivation and fear. However, the last act of this grotesque drama was played when, on May 7, 1896, H.H. Holmes was executed, drawing a close to the terrifying saga of America's first documented serial killer. His demise signaled the termination of a reign of terror that had held Chicago captive for almost a decade. Yet the specter of H.H. Holmes persists in the records of American crime, a chilling memento of the extremes of human wickedness.